Have you ever known someone who says they want a relationship, but the second things get real, they pull away? It's a super common and, let's be honest, incredibly frustrating puzzle. So today, we're going to dive into the psychology behind why some people just seem to be hardwired to fear commitment. And this quote, wow, it really just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's not that the person doesn't want love. Not at all. It's that they're absolutely terrified of the pain they think is waiting on the other side. It's a feeling I think a lot of us can understand, at least a little bit. So, what's really going on under the hood? Well, we're going to treat this like a detective story. Let's follow the clues and uncover the real psychological roots of why people avoid commitment. To make this all feel a bit more real, let's talk about a classic example. We'll call him Adam. Now, Adam is the kind of guy who seems to have it all, He's successful, he's charming, and he genuinely wants to find a connection. But like clockwork, the moment a relationship starts to feel too close, he hits the brakes. He'll pick a fight over nothing, or maybe just disappear for a few days. And that brings us to the central mystery we're trying to solve. Why would someone who desperately wants love consistently and sometimes creatively sabotage their own chances of finding it? I know, it sounds totally backward, but as we're about to see, there's a powerful, hidden logic to it.
To crack this case, our first major clue takes us all the way back to our childhoods. We're looking for what psychologists call our attachment blueprint.
Okay, so what is attachment theory? In a nutshell, it says that our very first relationships, usually with our parents, create a kind of template, or a blueprint in our brains. And this blueprint, formed when we were kids, ends up powerfully shaping how we act in our romantic relationships as adults. Now, here's the thing. Research shows that about 60% of us develop what's called a secure attachment style. These folks tend to find it pretty easy to get close to people. But that leaves the other 40% of us with what are called insecure styles. And that, right there, is where the trouble usually starts.
So inside that 40%, we mostly see two main patterns of insecurity that can really fuel commitment issues. You can think of them as two different sides of the very same coin, a coin that's stamped with fear.
And these two patterns are called anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. Someone with an anxious style is terrified of being abandoned, so their gut instinct is to pull people closer. In total contrast, someone with an avoidant style is afraid of being trapped or losing their freedom, so they instinctively push people away. Both are just different strategies to manage relationship anxiety.
Let's dig into the anxious style a little more. These folks basically have a super sensitive alarm system for their relationships. They're always on high alert for any tiny sign of rejection, and they often need a ton of reassurance. When they feel that insecurity creeping in, their go-to move is to cling on even tighter. This pattern often comes from a childhood where a parent's love and attention felt unpredictable.
And then you've got the avoidant style. These are often your classic commitment phobes. They use all sorts of strategies to keep you at arm's length, all because of a deep fear of losing their independence. They almost expect relationships to go wrong. And, get this, these two types often attract each other, creating that painful push-pull dynamic, where one person's need for closeness just triggers the other's need for distance. It's a vicious cycle. But, our attachment style is just one piece of the puzzle. It's a huge piece, for sure, but there are other powerful psychological factors that can make these patterns even stronger. First up, there's the plain old fear of intimacy. And we're not just talking about being shy. This is a deep, persistent reluctance to be emotionally open and vulnerable with someone, usually because of a core belief that if you open up, you're just going to get hurt. Next, we've got rejection sensitivity. Think of this as having an emotional sunburn. Even the slightest touch feels like a serious burn. A text that's answered a little too slowly, a weird tone of voice. It can feel like a complete catastrophe, which makes them want to push their partner away first, just to avoid the pain they're sure is coming. And of course, life just happens. A really bad breakup, struggles with self-esteem, or seeing your parents go through a nasty divorce. All of these things can pour gasoline on those underlying fears, making commitment feel like a risk that's just not worth taking. So here's the most important takeaway. Avoiding commitment isn't a character flaw. It's not about being a bad person, it's a defense mechanism. It's a protective strategy that was learned a long, long time ago to keep from getting hurt. The only problem is, what might have worked back then is probably sabotaging any chance at happiness now.
But, and this is the most important part, this blueprint is not set in stone. That's a myth. It is absolutely possible to rewrite your love story and move toward a much more secure and happy way of connecting with people.
So how does that change actually happen?
Well, the first big step is just to understand your own pattern. Do you lean more anxious or more avoidant? The second step, which experts really emphasize, is to build a coherent narrative. All that means is writing about your early life, making sense of it, and connecting the dots to how you act now. Believe it or not, that process can actually help rewire your brain.
Just remember, change is always possible. Having a long history of being insecure in relationships does not have to be a life sentence. With a little willingness and a lot of honesty with yourself, you can work through these issues and build the kind of fulfilling, committed relationship you truly want.
So, I'll leave you with this thought. Our past may write the first draft of our love stories. That's true. But it's so important to remember that we are the ones holding the pen. The final edit, well, that's always ours to make.